This is the FlipNerd.com Expert Real Estate Investing Show, the show for real estate investors, whether you're a veteran or brand new. I'm your host, Mike Hambright, and each week I bring you a new expert guest that will share their knowledge and lessons with you. If you're excited about real estate investing, believe in personal responsibility, and taking control of your life and financial destiny, you're in the right place. This is episode number 340, and my guests today are my friends Lee Bryant and Jessica Weaver that operate a virtual real estate investing empire where they're doing about 125 deals a year, mostly rehabs, across 3 states with just a few employees. They're an impressive duo that shares a lot today on the show. In fact, Lee and Jessica work together, but even they live in different states. Today they share why they invest in so many different markets, how they use virtual assistants to do much of the work, and they provide advice for those looking to either get started or to expand. This episode is full of some great knowledge, and you just don't want to miss it. Please help me welcome Lee and Jessica to the show. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So for those that are listening in, Lee and Jessica and I are in a mastermind together. These guys are really awesome, and they're doing a great job, and I'm excited to... You're the type of folks that don't do any info type stuff. You're just head in the trenches and working hard and making stuff happen. So I'm excited to share you with my listeners because I think you guys are awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
Yeah. So before we kind of get started talking about how you've kind of built your 3-state empire virtually, why don't you maybe tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how you guys got started?
Okay, I'm Lee Bryant. I'm out of Savannah, Georgia, and I was an all-state agency owner for 20 years, and I just said it's time to move on. And about 10 years ago, I went full-time and sold my agency. We began working together. Jessica and I began working together, and we started off in the beginning doing high-end short sales.
Yeah.
And we were doing them in like Georgia, South Carolina, along the coast. And Jessica was actually worked for a negotiating company back then for the first year. And then she came to work with me, and we began doing the high-end short sales 10 years ago.
Yeah, so back in, I guess, 07. You start I'm realizing when you start getting older, you're like decades go by, and like, oh my God, it's been that long. So 07, yeah. So that was right when stuff was starting to hit the proverbial fan, right? And especially in the luxury markets, right? That's where you guys were primarily operating.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally getting houses for a third of their value.
Yeah. And then you kind of evolved to where I don't want to steal your thunder yet, but going into additional markets and additional ways to find deals, and as kind of time went by, right? Yeah,
we were working like Hilton Head, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, St. Augustine, Florida. We were kind of still working a little big area, but it wasn't as large as what we do now. But we had to create the volume. Then we were still kind of working virtually through several states. And
when you guys first started working together, I know you guys live in different states now. Were you working virtual even at that time? I mean, did you guys start in the same geography, or?
We've always been virtual, working together. I actually started, I'm in St. Augustine, Florida. So I was in real estate and then started working on the short sales, and we were working together from 2 different states that way. And we've kind of always stayed that way.
Yeah, we've only had an office one time. We had an office 4 or 5 years ago. We had an office for about a year or 2, and she wasn't there, but we did have an office, and I like it better the way we do it now.
You weren't really there either.
Oh, I didn't go. So I'm not an office type person.
Yeah, I have an office that's where I'm at now is 1.2 miles from my house, which is nice because the first, I guess, 6 or 7 years I was in business, we were about a half hour away. So it was nice to get close to home. But even now, even like this morning, I went to Starbucks for a couple hours before I came to the office. I prefer not to come here, or not to have to come here. So I get it.
Yeah. I didn't like it at all. So
he really can't stand to be in an office. He gets crazy.
Well, when you were with Allstate, though, you were pretty much tied to an office, I bet, right?
Yeah, but I didn't work very hard when I was with Allstate. I had an agency, and so I was there probably 20 hours a week. You know. But yeah, I was in an office quite a bit then. But
yeah, so there's a lot of real estate investors that I guess kind of like me have primarily operated in one market for most of the time, especially early on. And then there's some other guys out there that are virtual, and they usually are operating in 1 or 2 markets and they kind of manage that virtually, maybe travel there every once in a while. But you guys have expanded over time to be operating in 3 states, which is pretty incredible. Is that and I know you tend to work some more rural areas and some smaller towns. Is that kind of the main reason why you had to expand out so far?
Yeah, as competition grew, we started small, started in Georgia and then a little bit of South Carolina. And then as the markets have heated up, we've had to expand to keep our volume up. And that's our main reason. We don't necessarily just love to go to all these different places, do it for volume.
And have you I guess you've probably found that smaller markets tend to be less competitive, I guess, than some of the bigger markets. I mean, I'm feeling that pressure here in Dallas.
I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, if you deal in some of our markets that you would think were small, they're very competitive. And then we buy houses in some of these places where there's literally no competition.
Yeah. And then, so I know you guys are doing around maybe 120, 125 houses a year typically. So talk about, one of the things that I think is really amazing about you guys is that you have a really small team and you're virtual. Even the two of you that are here with us today live in different states. Just talk about how that started, because I know you had to overcome some issues, and then how that's kind of evolved.
Yeah, it really evolved because of virtual assistants. I mean, that's really what's made us where we were. And obviously, being in groups, such as the one you and I are in, we were able to systematize our businesses in such a way that we can turn that kind of volume because we're very systematized with it, and it allows us to do that.
Yeah. So when did you start having virtual assistants? Because, there was a time where that was kind of unheard of, right? And then it just became popular. So
7 years ago, I believe.
7 or 8 years, pretty much the whole time that we've turned to volume. When we did the short sale business, I don't think we had any virtual assistants. I don't remember.
No, we didn't. It started actually when we started our HUD stuff.
Yeah, so we've had them 7, 8 years, and we've had very little turnover. We use some out of the Philippines, and I think we've only had, for our HUD business, I think we only had 2 in 7 years. So it's not like, we had the same person now. We've had her for 5 years.
Yeah.
She got a master's degree, and we thought she was going to leave us. When she got a master's degree, she missed a day of work because she was going to get her to graduate. And I said, well, she's gone. She was just doing this while she was finishing up her work, her school, and now she's still here a couple more years later.
Yeah, that's great.
Still here.
So talk about your team. So you're in 3 states in a lot of different markets. You have you're doing about 120, 125 deals a year, and you're doing a lot of HUD stuff. You're doing a lot of REOs still, and even you said you guys are still doing some short sale stuff. I guess some of that is because in those more rural markets, there's more of that stuff that's kind of still happening than probably the bigger markets, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's competitive now. Than what it was even 2 years ago in the rural markets, but our volume last year was as high as it's been.
Yep.
So we keep on going. But, of course, we're expanding out, and trying to keep the volume up.
Yeah. So talk about the overall, maybe, Jessica, you can talk about the overall structure of your team, like the two of you. And I know you have a real small team to make all this happen. What's the structure like?
I handle I oversee, I would say, the business in general. I oversee the virtual assistant.
Well, we just heard Lee say he doesn't like to work, so.
Yeah, no. He complains a lot when he has to work.
I'm kidding.
He turns his phone off at 5 every day, which is a good thing, I think, to be able to do that. But I basically oversee our acquisitions, our virtual assistants, make sure offers are going in, evaluate all the properties that are coming in from the leads to us. Marketing, also oversee our marketing. And then, so I'm not really even sure what Lee does, but he actually handles all the contractors. He, has final say on everything. We have Jackie, who works from home. She is in the States, and she is a business manager, I believe is what her title is. But she keeps the paperwork. She pays all the bills. She pays all the contractors.
Is she in the same market as either one of you guys?
She's in Savannah.
She was she's been with me she was with me with Allstate.
I see.
So she's been with me.
Yeah.
She's done great. coming over. So there's Jackie, and then we have another assistant that just does kind of whatever needs to be done, set up the insurance, take calls if needed, if we have overflow calls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
the secret, the reason we can do the big areas is because we use contractors. We have 2 traveling crews of contractors, general contractors that travel for us so they're on the road constantly doing the rehabs.
Okay.
And then most markets have a contractor in them, like Savannah, Georgia, or wherever it is. Yeah, that particular market has its own contractor that we've had for a long time. So it's actually fairly easy with that because I don't have to go visually see these properties because I kind of know what's going on based on past experiences with.
So talk about that a little bit. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. So if we get a house in Columbus, Georgia, it may be, a 4 or 5 hour drive. We can send our contractor there to go ahead and give us the rehab scope of work and our agent there. So we don't have to go there until we buy it.
And most cities have an agent also, at least one agent that we can send there and give us our comps to be able to tell us if it's a deal or not. So even though our team's small, we utilize our different people.
Kind of outside like partners or vendors or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about, I know you guys primarily, you primarily rehab, right? Are you looking to change your life through real estate investing? If you're interested in either getting started or taking your business to the next level, please check out FlipNerd's private program at theinvestormachine.com. This is the most robust real estate investor coaching, networking, and mastermind on the planet and designed for your success. If you're ready to roll up your sleeves, ready to take personal responsibility for your own success, and ready to dive into a world-class instructional coaching program that provides you step-by-step instruction to help you achieve financial freedom, then you should apply today. Spaces are limited, and candidates are only considered after an application and interview process. Our 12-month investor program is unparalleled. Think you might be a fit? Learn more today at theinvestormachine.com. So talk about. So I know you guys primarily you primarily rehab, right?
We were about 50% rehab, 50% wholesale.
Okay.
And then about 3 years ago, I guess it was times were so good, and I hated to see giving up the money, so I started doing a lot more rehab. So about 80% of them are rehabs now.
Okay.
We may, as hot as it is, we may actually cut that back a little bit because we can sell them so easy now that.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about this kind of traveling rehab cruise. So outside of a couple of the bigger markets, you have a couple crews that'll just go wherever they need to go across 3 states?
It's fun. They go and they stay in the houses. They'll stay in the house. And so they work 12 hours a day. So they can turn a lot more volume than an average contractor crew because they're there from 7 in the morning till 7 or 8 at night every day working. So they're working 12 hours a day. So
they actually just stay in the house that they're working on.
Yeah, we show up there and they have, their air mattresses. They have a grill usually out front. Or back wherever they're grilling. They take a TV, but they get the hang of it too, and I think some of them like it.
It's a win-win for all of us. Like I say, we get houses turned a lot quicker than a normal contractor that's working from 8 to 4. We get them turned a lot faster.
Yeah. How did you come up with? Because it takes you got to find the right people that are willing to do that, right?
And they burn. That's the reason we have 2 crews. We just have gotten 2 crews in the last couple of years because we were burning a crew out, but this new crew, that we've had for about a year and a half. They've never gone home. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if he's ever been back.
Not sure what that situation is.
Yeah, but he's with us. He's gone. He's gone during Christmas. He's on the road. They were working during Christmas.
Yeah. And so how big are these crews? Is it just like 2 or 3 guys that are kind of doing everything, or?
Sometimes it depends what they have going on. They'll bring in a crew, like a vinyl crew or something, and they'll stay with them for a few days and vinyl house or paint the house, and then they'll leave. The painting crews will come in and stay with them, and then they'll leave. So sometimes there's 6 or 7, but most of the time it's like 3 guys.
Yeah. That's an interesting model. So did you? I'm curious to hear how that kind of started. Did you had a contractor and you're like, would you travel? Because I've done it before. I sent some guys up to about 2 hours north on a deal one time, and I put them up in a hotel. And it turns out that there were some bed bugs or something. I mean, it didn't look like it was a bad hotel, but I don't feel like a bad guy. I'm like, it was a small town, so there weren't a lot of hotels.
Right.
Yeah, we understand.
But they were like, no, we're not doing that again. So, I mean, you got to kind of like, did you kind of ease into like just asking somebody, would you be willing to go down there and do this house? And then the next thing you know,
Yeah, it started on like a weekend, where I'd send them and they would go stay in a house for, let's say, a weekend, like they would be where they could really go home, but why go home and just knock out 2 days of work?
Somewhere a couple hours away, so they may work Friday through Monday. It was a small deal, and then they realized it wasn't that bad. They do want the AC to work, and all that. It can't be terrible house, but
you're not sticking them in a total burnout or anything.
Most of the houses are okay, and then usually what they'll do, if it is a house that's pretty rough, they'll stay in a motel for a hotel for a couple of days, until they can get it cleaned up
enough
to live.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. So in terms of, I want to ask you some questions in a minute about kind of getting started, but in terms of the evolution, you started to go after different lead sources and kind of expanded out geographically. So is that what's your kind of plan for the future? Is it to continue to expand geographically, or where do you go from here? Because I know it's a lot of work. I mean, I get it.
Yeah, no, we're actually going to try to pull back in, and our goal, one of the things is doing more wholesale deals. I think that can pull me back in where we don't have as big of an area, and who knows? I mean, volume comes and goes. We think the volume's dropping. As soon as we think we do some things to generate more business, and as soon as we do, then it pops loose, and it's right now it's probably as slow for the incoming properties to buy has been for a year or two, but it always seems to build back up, and so that's where we are right now.
Yeah. For folks that are just kind of getting started, I mean, what kind of advice can you give to people that are getting started that hear? So I'm always kind of cognizant of having guests on the show. I want people to like listen and walk away with that helped me. I can go do this now or whatever. And I think sometimes people listen to folks like you and they're like, that they have this big empire that I can't even imagine how to get from like just starting to doing that. And I know that you guys didn't do that either. It evolved over time, right? But if you had, maybe why don't you tell us this? If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently?
I don't know. I mean, it's been a pretty good role for us. I probably would have stopped going wider and got a little deeper in my markets that I was currently in instead of expanding. I probably would have stopped it at a point instead of what we've done and gone into 3 states. I probably would have stayed in a state or two, and then
I guess with some of what you guys are doing with HUD houses and stuff like that, it almost becomes agnostic to where you are or where the houses are, right? Because you're doing all that stuff virtually anyway, right?
Yeah, it's all virtual, so it's kind of depends on who a real estate agent sends us a deal or what HUD deal we receive. Yeah. So we don't control that. The only way we control it is by our marketing for other ways of getting properties, and we use real estate agents, so we do have some control over that because we can market to real estate agents that we want them to send us deals, so we can put more effort in certain markets with those.
So tell us about, maybe Jessica, you could tell us about, I know you guys have a realtor program that's evolved over time where you have boots on the ground to help you buy houses, like to look at houses maybe that are HUD houses or whatever, just to be your eyes and ears. But then you've kind of evolved to where you found a way to get deals and kind of have more, get more deal flow through agents in a lot of different markets, right?
It's actually been very successful. We started it, and it's all automated. Virtual assistant does it for me on a weekly basis. But they're basically send an introduction email out to the real estate agents and letting them know who we are, what we do, and just saying, hey, keep us in mind if you have a deal fall through. We buy and we can buy it quick, so give us a shot. And then beyond that, we email them and we text them weekly. And it's a very casual communication. It's very personal. They feel like Lee actually is texting them directly, and it's just like, hey, you got anything for me to look at and they get to know us. And it took a couple months to kick in, but then they kind of forget that they don't actually know you. And it works. They send, they'll text deals to us. They'll respond back to the emails that, have you looked at this yet? Or whatever. So it's been very successful for us. And, if the deal falls through, they have that in their head, because we've been there just kind of ticking at them every single week. So that's been a successful program. We really weren't planning on it to be as successful as it has been.
I kind of relate it to a guy like yourself or some of the gurus, they're out there, and as a person watching, you kind of get to know that person, and you kind of think you know them, and even if you don't know them, you kind of think you know them because you're listening to them and listening to their...
you build up some level of trust, right?
Yeah, and that's what goes on with this. So, these agents, they all think they kind of know me because I'm sending them a text, which is an automated text, but I'm sending them automated text each week.
Right.
And so it builds a good relationship.
And that email's there, too. If they don't delete it, they can search back through their email and go, who was that person who said, if a deal fell through? Some of us, and they've even, agents that aren't on our list, have been referred by other agents, like, oh, you should call, so-and-so. Yeah. So the referrals kind of trickle on down. It's good.
It's a strong program. We have to cut it back at times. It can be almost overwhelming. You can turn volume. You can turn the volume up on it instantly and have more deals coming your way. Now, not all deals, you have to weed through them.
Yeah,
you got to look at you got to kiss a bunch of frogs, right?
You can have more volume than you can really handle.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to respond to everything, that's being sent in. So we sometimes, I tell my VAs, I don't send an email or text this week. And I think it also helps, to stop it for a little while. And then when we send it, it kind of, they're like, oh yeah, it's, there's a little space in between the texts and emails. It kind of helps.
Yeah. I do this training for some of the people that I coach and mentor on, like, networking, but I kind of talk about just, a lot of folks will say, I met somebody or I met a realtor, and I told them if they ever come across a deal, let me know. But every investor says that to realtors, right? So how do you stand out? And one way to stand out is just to keep tapping them on the shoulder, right? Like, hey, I'm still here. It's just basically, it's kind of a recency thing, right? Like, they're going to, if you consider that most realtors are the ones who are involved with probably 90+% of the deals in the country, right? A lot of them are retail deals that aren't investor friendly, but every once in a while they come across something and you want to be top of mind. And that's what you guys are doing, is you're texting them and sending them emails and just making sure that when they come across something, they remember you, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of funny actually too, because one of our texts is like, did you have a deal fall through? Let me know. I can buy your house or something. And that response to those, they're like, how did you know? They think we heard from somebody about a deal.
You heard about it because deals are always falling through. So when you send that out, they'll call you up and say, yeah, I did have that deal.
Who told you?
Who told you? How'd you know that? When it's just a random text.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So talk about a little bit more about your virtual assistants. So I know that you have a great program, Jessica, of getting virtual assistants to be really productive. And one of the things that I have quite a few actually we have about 15 people on our team from all across the all across the world. Now they're not all administrative VAs, but like my video guy, we have a full-time graphic designer. She's in Serbia. Like, we've got people all over the place. Oh. And I know early on, like, I didn't really know. You kind of think, well, it's inexpensive labor, and you're not really thinking about how to make them more productive necessarily. But, it's systems and processes, right? You start to create, like, this is how we do this. These are the 20 things you need to do. And then you have to kind of figure it out, and then you can hand it off to somebody, right? So can maybe share your process a little bit there?
For me, and it actually started 8 years ago when I was introduced to the virtual assistant, mentality. But anything I've done moving forward, I'm like, if it's something I do repetitive, I need to put it down so that somebody else can do it. So I actually do written procedures, but I also use different, like, Screencast-O-Matic or whatever to actually do the task on my computer, record it, so that the VAs can rewind and rewatch and, ask me any questions. So, and they're usually just like a go. It's not even any questions. It's so, put together for them, and it's in writing.
It's like an operating manual. You just say, this is exactly how you do it, and if you have any questions, let me know, right?
It is, and it's easy to add stuff. If I know, they may be slow on something, I can quickly go through and add tasks for them, or just have, one-time tasks, or, if we need something done, working on a list or whatever, I can send it to them. But yeah, we use our VAs to help us with the large amount of offers that we're submitting. We use them for marketing. We use them for cleaning up lists. We use them for actually researching information, and for probate stuff, it's not a manual list that we buy. We actually get the records from the courthouse. So it's a multi-step process, and they're the ones completing the list for us on that.
That's awesome.
And then, like we said, the realtor email and text, they do that automatically. So
yeah. And you start to get to a point to where you start thinking, well, what else can I have a virtual assistant do, right? Because once you kind of realize that, hey, if I show them the exact way, and then I just say, do this every Tuesday or on the first of each month or whatever it is, it's like something just pops at one point, right? And you're like, okay, what else can we do here, right?
It does.
And it's hard. That's probably the hardest thing, is to get people's mindsets right in your business, to understand that they can use these virtual assistants. They say, well, they can't do that for you. That's the first thing you think.
I have to do that. Yeah.
I have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we had a person when we first started using them, she actually left us because of the virtual assistants, because she thought the virtual assistants couldn't do it. We were taking work off of her, and she actually thought that they couldn't do it. And she left, and now the virtual assistants have her position. It's interesting on that part of it.
Not everybody has that mentality from the get-go, but it's definitely the way I think.
Yeah. I think it's tough because a lot of new real estate investors are, if you left your job or you're trying to leave your job or whatever, you're trying to be lean and mean, and kind of what ends up happening is you do everything yourself, and then you start to think, well, nobody else could do that. I'm the only one who knows how to do it, because it's all in your head, which is true, but you just have to start documenting it, right? Like, okay, first I do this, and then you do this, and then that becomes a way to show other people how to do it, right? And then you can put some checks and balances in place, like prove to me that you did it, or, over time you build that trust up, right? But
right.
Yeah. Right. What advice would you give for people that are trying to start using virtual assistants for their business?
You have to, like she said, you have to determine what you're doing and then use the virtual assistants to replace what you're doing.
Someone has to have a clear understanding of the task and be able to perform the task, in order to teach it. So you do have to understand what it is that you're trying to teach them at first, and then, but it's super easy to record it, you doing the task, and talk through it, answering questions as you walk along, in short 5-minute increments, and then write out the procedures also. But I would, my advice would be we started with a virtual assistant half-time, so 20 hours a week. So it's not a huge financial investment on a monthly basis.
Right, yeah.
And you can start them off slow, and as you build trust with them, hand more things off to them and increase them to full-time and go from there.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. I think we had 20 hours for a week before you put them full-time. Once you do those 20 hours, you're going to use a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Well, whenever we hire one, I always start them half-time to give me time to train them, because I don't need them a full 8 hours when I'm training them for the first week. So I usually do, when I'm hiring one, let her know I'm going to need them to be full time, but if they can just start off for the first couple of weeks, half time.
Yeah. To kind of ease into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I know people is good. This isn't necessarily what I've done, but it's kind of, I think, good advice is to look at what you're doing, all the things you're doing right now, and start to put your tasks into buckets. Like, what am I doing that's like a $5 or $10 an hour job, and what am I doing that's like $1,000 an hour job, and start to get the stuff that's effectively below your pay grade, right, or the stuff you hate doing, right, and start to find ways to kind of create processes for somebody else to do that.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's the thing. The stuff you hate doing, you can get rid of it, get it off your plate, and do what you like to do.
Yeah.
The one thing we haven't outsourced to the VA, and I know it's possible, I haven't found that trust to give it up yet, is to evaluate the properties, to determine what we want to offer. properties. So I know it's possible and I can create that system, but I haven't quite, there's an instinct to it, you know.
Yeah,
and,
there's some gut feel stuff there for sure.
So we're not quite there, but I mean, I know it's got to be in the future if we want to continue to grow. So
yeah. Well, sometimes when we have the show, people are, you know, I say people that are on the show are always interested in listeners contacting them to do deals or find ways to work together. But usually they're in one small market, but you guys are in 3 states. So yeah, I know you guys do a lot of partnering with people and things like that. If there's somebody that's in, so you're in Georgia, you're in Florida, and you're in Alabama, is that right?
Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama. Not too much Florida.
I live in Florida. But
Okay.
Don't do much.
Most of our business is Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama.
Yeah. So if folks are interested in getting a hold of you guys and either buying houses from you or selling houses to you or whatever, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, they can go to our website, www.southeasternproperties.com, and they can reach us through that. And we're always looking for deals or partnerships, and we do a lot of partnerships with a lot of different people, obviously, in a lot of markets. So,
tell us the web address one more time, Lee.
You gave the wrong one.
I'm sorry.
It's Southeastern Real Estate Solutions.
Southeastern Real Estate Solutions.
We have so many different ones.
Hey, I understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll get a link down below the notes here for anybody that's interested. Really appreciate you guys joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Right,
thank you. It was fun.
And I'll see you guys, I guess, at our mastermind here in
March.
One more month. Yeah, a few weeks out. So, yep.
Yep, looking forward to
it.
Great to see you guys. And everybody that joined us today, thanks for joining us with Lee and Jessica. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you on another upcoming episode. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the FlipNerd.com Investing Show. If you're not yet an elite member of FlipNerd, you're missing out. We have tons of great training, including a new detailed master class published each month and live training webinars with experts twice a month. Plus, you'll get access to all of our archives, where we already have a growing library of master classes and other training videos. Elite members also get membership in our incredible online Mastermind group, where many of the top real estate investors from across the country, including many of the hundreds of guests I've had on the show in the past, are already members. Whether you're brand new, looking to get started, or a veteran, you simply must join today. I promise you won't be disappointed. To learn more or join today, please visit flipnerd.com/lab. That's flipnerd.com/lab. See you on the next show.